right. Well, welcome to Neighboring 101. This is session number 70, I think, unless I've lost track and haven't counted right. It's happened a few times before, but we've been doing this for a while, and many of you have been on some of these from the very beginning. And thank you for joining us each month. This is where we talk to leaders in the neighboring movement from all across the United States, and we discover ways that organizations and individuals can use the art and skill of neighboring as part of community and personal development. So thank you for being a part of that. A little something this different this month and probably for future months. Before I introduce our guest speaker, uh, I just want to begin with something that kind of helps create connection and context, but certainly connection for those of you that are on today, either in chat or by turning on your microphone. Can you answer this question? Why was it important for you to be here today? Why was it important for you to be here today? Again, this is an effort to try and continue to create connection within this network of over 1,000 people, nearly 1,100 people that are in Neighboring 101.
Can I go first?
You can go first. Yeah. Why was it important for you to be here today?
Because I love my neighborhood, I love my neighbors, and I want it to thrive.
Thrive. That's a great word. Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
And I think at least Jennifer's on here because she loves what Nicole is doing. Met Nicole at Neighborhoods USA and wanted to support the work. Here. And Laura to connect with others in the neighborhood movement. To hear some good news and ideas, fostering friendship and connection. Diana, thank you. And Rachel, always looking for ideas for community building. Suzanne, these are encouraging. It was important for me to be here today because I believe in what we're doing, and we're doing great things and serving the community and the neighborhood. So, and it's an effort to be supportive. Thank you. And of course, our speaker is here because she gets to share, obviously, about Boise and all of the above. And Chet posts that the content and community building brings invaluable resources, ideas, and inspiration that pushes forward our shared work. We're all enriched by neighboring practice in so many unexpected ways. Well, that's good to hear. I think it's good to give ourselves a reminder as to why we do this and why we're here and why it's important to jump on. I'm glad you've taken the time to do that. And next month we may ask a different question. But good to see you. Well, let's just jump right into our guest speaker. I've got a little an intro for her, and we want to give her um, time for her presentation. It's really my pleasure to introduce Nicole Carr. She's program manager for Energize Our Neighborhoods in beautiful Boise, Idaho, which you can see behind her. A glimpse of the fall color that happens there. Nicole brings a wealth of experience in building relationships, building partnerships, and fostering collaboration, creating vibrant, inclusive spaces that strengthen community life. Her presentation today, as you can see on the screen, Open Streets Boise, a model for collaborative placemaking and community engagement, is really going to offer sort of a practical how-to guide for planning and hosting open street events. And she'll share some proven strategies that she's used, building strong partnerships and otherwise. It's really sort of an event desired to inspire some lifestyles also that help bring neighbors together. I met Nicole at Neighborhoods USA conference. Her um, presentation there was very well received, and plus she was just bubbly and fun to be around, and you could tell her heart was in the right place, and thought, man, we need to give her a national audience again when possible. So by the end of the session, I think we'll have some probably actionable tools that we can put into practice. That's always good as well. So Nicole, thank you for all you're doing in your community in beautiful Boise, and thank you for giving of your time to be here today. It's all yours.
Thanks, David. Honored to be here. So glad we were able to connect at the Neighborhoods USA conference earlier this summer. And speaking of summer, even though these beautiful Boise fall colors are on display behind me, it's going to be 85 degrees today.
Oh.
So we've got a couple more weeks of warm temperatures before the leaves actually change, but I am channeling it and I am ready. So yeah, I'd love to share with you all today about Open Streets, whether you're a planner, an event organizer, nonprofit leader, or just someone who loves seeing neighborhoods thrive, which sounds like this group very much is. I'm really glad that you signed on today and viewing this with us. In Boise, we've seen firsthand how transforming our streets into people-first spaces can strengthen our community and support local, elevate cultural expression, and promote healthier, more sustainable ways of moving through a city. None of it happens in a vacuum, though. As we know, in doing this work, this Open Streets event is the result of deep collaboration between local government, neighborhood groups, small businesses, and incredible nonprofit partners. And so we'll walk through the planning process, share lessons learned, and hopefully spark some ideas that you all can implement and bring back to your own communities. David already introduced me, but just a little context. I started my public service journey just over 20 years ago as a 911 dispatcher in Los Angeles, and moved my family to the Boise area about 10 years ago, where I found opportunities to be more proactive and community focused in my work. And so working with the city of Boise, I'm very fortunate to have the support of our mayor and council to invest in our neighborhoods and lift up our community. So we'll begin with the big picture. Sometimes Idaho gets confused for Iowa or Ohio. And so just to kind of level set here, Idaho is one of the fastest growing states in the country, pushing 2 million people now. We're known, of course, for growing potatoes, our natural beauty, outdoor lifestyle, and strong sense of community. We're a welcoming state with just over 6,500 refugee resettlements over the past decade. And some of our major local employers include Albertsons, Micron, HP, and Simplot. And while we may be rural in many parts, cities like Boise are innovating how we build communities, especially in the public realm. Boise is the capital. It sits within the largest and most populous county. We're a growing city, balancing development with the commitment to preserving what makes Boise special: access to nature, vibrant neighborhoods, and strong civic engagement. I'm sure many of you can attest that folks are moving around. Our cities are changing and growing. And so how do we do that in a way where we are still putting people first? And that's very, very important in Boise. We have many special outdoor places which promote health, happiness, and community connection. Places like the Cherie Buckner Webb Park, which is more commonly known as the Pink Tree Park, boasts artificial turf, free public Wi-Fi, nearby shops and restaurants. And this downtown park is named after a trailblazing Idahoan. Cherie Buckner Webb was instrumental in the community work. And it provides a place for people to connect with the outdoors and serves as a hub for community events. Known as the Gem State, one of Boise's gems is our Boise River Greenbelt, which is a pathway that boasts 28 miles of reclaimed urban space along the beautiful Boise River. It's one of my favorite places to get outside, connect with others. I'm going to just kind of scoot through this so we can get right into the open streets. But we have a lot of open space in Boise. Our foothills bring nature right into our backyards. Foothill trailheads are within walking distance of a lot of our Boise neighborhoods, which links urban life to nature through 210 miles of managed trails. 63% of Idaho is public land. With our high rate of outdoor recreation, the idea of reclaiming streets as communal, open, people-focused spaces strongly resonates with our locals. Something unique to Idaho that, unlike many other metropolitan cities in the US, is all of Boise's roads are governed by a completely separate entity, the Highway District, which is not affiliated with the county or the city. This is an independent body with its own 5 elected commissioners, budget, and staff. And so this causes another layer of complexity that, through our cities, the district may, our cities can request through the district projects to be designed and built a certain way. This outside agency has the ultimate say. This arrangement can cause friction when we're out of alignment with policy, budget, and priorities. However, it also highlights why community-centered efforts like Open Streets are so important. And so that's where programs like Energize Our Neighborhoods come in, which is a program here at the City of Boise working with our community to focus on building stronger, more connected neighborhoods. We offer neighborhood grants, and we put on an annual community neighborhood conference, and we collaborate with residents and local organizations to improve the quality of life. From small community projects to citywide events, we work to strengthen our neighborhoods through events like Open Streets. Before our neighborhoods were connected by streets and bike paths, they were bound by something deeper, people seeking opportunity and connection and a better life. Boise was a key stop along the Oregon Trail and a magnet during the gold rush. The city grew from a place of passage into a city where people stayed, shaped by migration, ambition, and the promise of community. Railway connected Boise to the rest of the country, starting in the late 1880s, and the last passenger train left Boise in 1997. We celebrated our Boise Depot Centennial earlier this year, and it is just a beautiful city property. And as Boise grew, so did the ways we moved through our city. From railroads and trolleys, the city embraced new forms of transit that brought people together. And of course, then we move into cars, space, and how our cities evolved. Like many major U.S. cities like many major U.S. cities today, Boise now heavily relies on cars with a significant of commutes happening in those private vehicles. Maybe not so much of a fun fact, but in 2022, Idaho and Wyoming tied for the highest rate of car ownership in the country, with 96% of households reporting access to at least one vehicle. And Idaho now has 1.9 million vehicles on the road. And so with so much time spent in our cars, we can use Open Streets events to temporarily transform these roadways into places for people. This event shows residents what their streets could look like year-round. In a recent report from our local Boise State University, challenges associated with a high number of privately owned cars are likely familiar: traffic congestion and the environmental impact, not to mention the substantial resources used in the making, maintenance, and operation for these cars. I love my car. I was in Los Angeles, and that was our primary mode of transportation, but now we have more options here in Boise for alternate transportations. Clearly, car-centric lifestyles come with serious costs on our time, our environment, and our communities, but how does this play out across the country? So if you, a little bit of trivia for us, which states, if you could drop it in the chat, which states would you guess have the fewest vehicles on the road per capita? So taking consideration into population, fewest cars on the road. Let's see, we have a guest from New York City, Idaho, Maine, New Jersey.
Per capita.
Massachusetts. Oh. David, what's your guess? Alaska?
I'm going Maine, Alaska, and Idaho, since you brought the subject up.
Okay. Well, we had a couple in there that were guessed. Delaware has the fewest cars per capita. Washington, D.C., I know technically not a state. Right. And New York. So somebody did guess New York. And if you're curious, number 4 is New Jersey. And a surprise to me was Arizona rounding out the top 5. Yeah, so thinking back to Idaho, we have 2 million people in the state, but 1.9 million people of those 2 million have cars.
Well, yes, that's right. I wasn't listening well, was I? Because you had just previously said that you were at the high end of the list.
Right. We have a lot of cars per capita here in Idaho. And so while we remain largely car dependent, local groups are working hard to shift that balance. We are fortunate to have amazing local nonprofit partners like the Boise Bicycle Project, whose mission is to create an inclusive bike culture where all riders and bikes belong. So the Boise Bike Project is, they provide access to tools, knowledge, and low-cost bikes, breaking down barriers so people of all ages can start and sustain their cycling journeys. And their hope is to make Boise the biking capital of America. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're starting with our Open Streets event. And so this is Director of Bike Advocacy, Nina. We partnered with, the city partnered with the Boise Bike Project because their mission really aligns with what we're trying to do, making it easier for everyone to move through our city. So in looking for inspiration, we turn to the roots of the open street movement itself, which is based in Bogota, Colombia. Cyclovia is the idea of reclaiming streets for people, and it isn't new. It's actually been around for about 50 years. And what began in 1974 with a group of residents closing just about 5 kilometers or 3 miles of a major Bogota road for a few hours grew to about 2 million people who now enjoy 60 miles of car-free roads every Sunday. So this is a weekly event in Bogota, and it is on my bucket list to get to Colombia and experience this firsthand. Has anyone in the group been to Bogota and experienced this? Looks like Chet has.
Yeah, I have. It's incredible. Like it's almost eerie how few cars, how there's no cars on the road, but people are rollerblading and they're biking and they're walking and their dogs are running and playing. It's it's almost like a farmer's market. That's feeling. It's really incredible.
Thanks for sharing. That's so awesome that you've got to experience that. And from my understanding, it's pretty informal how they close the streets down with just these little barricades. And it's such a common thing now that people they come to expect it and they know that it's happening every Sunday. Closing a street in Boise is not as informal and relaxed because we love our cars. And so the Road to Open Streets really evolved from a couple of other prior events, which I'll just touch on briefly. This is Tour de Fat, which was pretty much a costume bike party hosted by New Belgium Beer, and they had multiple stops around the country, and Boise was one of the earliest stops and longest running. So Tour de Fat came through, and we had a strong biking community about 20 years when this event first rolled into town, but we didn't have a biking culture. And so this was really the beginning of seeing that biking culture built here in Boise. Our cycling scene was somewhat segmented during this Tour de Fat time, where nonprofits supported specific types of riders, friendly but a clear and distinct separation between road cyclists and mountain bikers. Tour de Fat changed that because it created space where everyone came together around a shared love of biking. Because folks were in costumes and with that spirit of fun, those usual distinctions disappeared. You couldn't tell a roadie from a mountain biker. At its height, it drew over 13,000 attendees and raised $76,000 for local cycling organizations, largely funded through beer sales. So it was definitely a bike beer party, which then evolved into Goat Head Fest. So when New Belgium removed the Boise stop from their tour, local organizations took it upon themselves to create the Goat Head Fest in 2017. And that namesake is incorporated in education and awareness for eradicating goat heads, which are noxious weeds here in Boise, also called puncture vines. They can cause painful injuries, pop tires, really not good for your pets to step on. Sharp, spiny fruit is how they're described. And they're native to Europe and are thought to have come to the United States in the 1800s, likely arriving on the wool of sheep. So now it's a symbol of the event. It became a tongue-in-cheek way to rally the community around biking. And we actually have events for goat head pulling. There's a lot of education that the city and local groups are doing to get rid of that weed. And so we'll all gather in one specific neighborhood and we'll all pull goat heads to try to get rid of them in specific areas.
I
So
am
again,
so glad that you explained what goat head is, because I had lots of other things running through my
right?
mind.
So
And
going back to
to
this
go,
slide, in the top left corner is the little goat head mascot, and that's a pretty clear depiction of the spiny thing that gets stuck in your tire and feet.
well, I was going to ask about the previous tour as well, because it's Tour de Fat.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell me there's a special meaning for that I'm missing.
I think it was related to Fat Tire beer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. I didn't get to experience that event, so I'm going off of history gathered from folks who helped shape those.
Okay. I was starting to
Yeah.
think I was the mascot for that one. Okay.
No. So Goat Head Festival, while we still had the costumes, the bikes, the skates, the scooters, it was mainly in downtown parks. And while we helped eliminate those noxious weeds, it wasn't just a party, it was definitely more advocacy and action. And so this has now evolved, bringing that same energy from Goat Head and Tour de Fat to Open Streets, which is a new chapter focused on creating safe, car-free public spaces for walking, biking, play, and connection. And so this is still adopting that grassroots efforts and channeling it into something bigger, taking it out of the city parks, taking the focus off of the beer party portion and coming right into our streets, collaborating more with our neighborhood groups, and using those strong pool of volunteers with the knowledge and expertise from those prior events to steer Open Streets with city funding and support. And so 2024 was our inaugural Open Streets, the first event of its kind in Idaho. And we designed the event intentionally with unique experiences along segments of the route. We closed about 1.2 miles of roadway, and had some hubs along the route, each section offering a different theme: kid-friendly zones, wellness areas. We still did have a beer garden, but the whole event wasn't centered around beer sales. Live music to appeal to a wide range of interests and age groups. And so these maps were placed along the route, and there was really no special formula for which streets were best. The route selected for our 2024 event was like any other Boise street, which was a mix of businesses, an elementary school, and several underused parking lots. And so here's the roadway on a typical day outside of the event. We had to get really creative to breathe life into a regular old street. You can see on the video that it's a popular road for both traffic, car traffic, pedestrians, and cyclists. And so we activated the space using parking lots along the route, as well as outside of the event footprint, working with nearby churches for people who were coming to the event. They would have a space to park. And again, we took it out of the city park and brought it right into our street to show how the roads can be used creatively and encourage residents and decision makers to think differently about how the street design, accessibility, and public space planning takes place. Activating the space meant thinking beyond typical event booths. We invented spontaneous participation. This was one of my favorite things about the event last year. We placed a drum set in the middle of the street. There were no instructions. It was just an open invitation to play, and people naturally gravitated toward it, creating impromptu jams. And let me tell you, people are talented. They showed up and they knew what they were doing on those drum sets. And then before we knew it, there was a guy with a guitar, and then there was like all these other instruments just appeared. And so I'm assuming it was people who lived along the route and just like went home and grabbed their musical instrument and like came to have a jam session. And then anyone that we had host a booth, we did ask them to have some type of an engaging activity, so it wasn't just a table with information and resources. There were oversized yard games. We saw paint by number murals, sidewalk chalk areas, spin the wheel stations for small prizes, and just to really engage with the people who were in the space that day. And that's what turned this typical road into a living, breathing public space, inviting creativity, and that connection. Also allowed neighborhood pride to shine through. There was so many people we heard who attended 2024's event that said, I haven't been on this road in 10 years. I haven't seen the businesses that have popped up along here, and I can't wait to come back outside of this event and check it out even further. I'm reading in the chat, it looks like there is a question from Suzanne, and I will definitely address that. It's actually one of our activities in our call today. So I'm going to keep moving through. You can see here, we had a bike fix-it station. We invited our city staff to host a booth, and, you know, meeting people where they are. Sometimes it's hard, you know, to leave City Hall and get out into the community and really hear from people. So this was an informal, friendly way that we could share what projects we were working on, what projects residents wanted to see from us, and just get that real face-to-face time. We did a legacy project where we installed during the event, we put paint on the roadway, which is huge. Again, first of its kind in Boise. We don't own our roads, and we had to work with community partners and other government agencies to install this bike corral where now scooters and bikes have a dedicated parking space. So that was a legacy project left behind from our Open Streets event last year. And here's what it looks like today with blind scooters and bikes parked near. Social connection was a huge piece of this event. By removing cars, we invited this organic connection, whether it was joining a dance, chatting with a neighbor, or just soaking in the energy of the day. But this was a huge driving factor and a very different feel from what you could see from the photos of Goat Head and Tour de Fat. Less partying and definitely more connection. These pictures are my favorite. It was so difficult to put my presentation together because the photographer really captured the energy of the day. And it really shines through. As folks moved through the event, they encountered a mosaic of cultural expressions, trying new cuisine, dancing to music from another culture, or watching a traditional performance, which sparked curiosity, empathy, and human connection. This photo of the gal on the bike, as that was also placed in the middle of the street. When you pedaled the bike, it played music from the speaker. So that was another really fun impromptu activation that was just, you know, people could do at their own will. Just more photos of folks really relaxed and building new connections. And one of the most powerful aspects of this event is the uplifting local culture. We were able to elevate our local artists. We had bands playing throughout the day. You had 8,000 people show up to this event. And so to have a local band have the opportunity to play for a crowd like that is pretty awesome. You know, offers the opportunity for future gigs and more exposure to our local artists here. And of course, you can imagine bringing 8,000 people to a street that we just typically drive through on, definitely boosted economic support that day. So we had, you know, lots of businesses who had record sales for the day, and increased visibility, folks returning to say, oh, I came and got, you know, a scoop of ice cream during Open Streets, and then, you know, they come back and visit time and time again. So that was really awesome to see and support those businesses along the route. And then, of course, as a city hosted event, we have to keep it safe. We offered a bike rodeo, which I didn't know what a bike rodeo was until I moved to Boise. Basically, it's a bike course where folks can practice their biking skills, learn the rules of the road, hand signals, things like that. And then we had this awesome first aid station in case anybody needed medical treatment that day. We used the school parking lot to host that bike rodeo. And then it gives kids the confidence, you know, maybe they don't feel comfortable riding to school now that they've learned some rules of the road and been able to practice their skills in a safe space. That might give them the confidence they need to get on their bike and ride to a friend's house or to school. Of course, working with our police partners, our event security partners, keeping that public safety coordination in mind was a big piece, which I can come back to if anyone has questions on, but traffic plans and advance notice time and time again in multiple ways, communicating that this road will be closed, how people can access their vehicles if they need to leave or come into the route space is a key factor in keeping everybody safe that day. So working with our city special events team, our public safety partners, our highway district who owns the road, it was vital for us to get our stakeholders to the table early. Planning for this event begins about 10 months prior. We had a monthly meeting so that we could all these partners could get into a room, share their lens, figure out where those gaps and opportunities are to make sure that we're offering a safe and welcoming event for everybody. All right, so here is where we go into this activity. I love your participation and ties in great with the question in the chat. The streets are shared public spaces, but not everyone uses or values them the same way. So if you could just take a moment and take on a stakeholder role and answer these 3 questions. And so some of the stakeholders could be a public works employee. You could be a mom with a parent with young children. You could be an attendee with a disability. You could be a teenager who skateboards. And so pick your stakeholder and put yourself in that role of that person and answer these questions of what excites you as a teenager who skateboards about this proposal. So the proposal is that your city is going to host an open streets event on a monthly basis. Now in Boise, we're doing it once a month. Wow. I'm sorry, once a year, but the proposal, this hypothetical proposal is once a month, we're going to close Main Street to cars on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It'll include what you see on your screen, pop-up vendors, live music, family activities. As you can imagine, Main Street is a major business corridor with limited parking. The event is city-sponsored and part of a new health and sustainability initiative. So as your character, like I said, a teenager who skateboards, a person with a disability, what are your concerns about this event? And how could the event work better for you in the future? So I'll give you just a minute to think about that. And then I'd love to share out in the chat or come off mute and share out. Tell us who your character is that you selected and then what your concerns are and how this event could work better.
I think you said one of the characters was public works person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as that public works person, I'm probably thinking, man, this is going to be a lot of extra work for me. Once a month on a Saturday, I have to give up a Saturday. I don't normally work on a Sunday. I don't normally have to work on a Sunday. Do I get paid overtime for this? Do I get paid extra? It might seem like a tall ask, a big ask.
Yeah. One of the other things we heard from a public works perspective is thinking about the trash and recycling options at the event and what that looks like, making sure we had enough trash and recycling bins along the route. How is that going to get picked up? Do we need additional trash service the day after? So those are other concerns that we heard from our public works folks.
Absolutely.
So Chet, remind me which role you assumed for this exercise.
I might have missed that part of the of the prompt. I didn't have a specific role in mind, but I think, you know, I forgot the first question, I guess, but you know, feeling safe in the road, the hot asphalt, less shade, ensuring that there's enough water were some of the concerns. And then, and then I had some ideas for activities.
Yeah, all valid. September is when we host our open streets here in Boise, and it could still be warm. Like I said, it's going to be 85 degrees today, and our event for 2025 is in 10 days. So there's a chance that the temps could still be pretty warm. And there is no shade because we are in the middle of the road and that asphalt drives up the temperatures. And so one of the things we heard from 2024 was more shade options, more seating options. We did work with our local water company to offer a refill station so that people stayed hydrated. And so those are all really valid. Staying safe in the road. We're closing down a roadway. We have thousands of people in it, and so making sure that those safety measures are in place for the detour and those traffic plans. We had police officers staffed at all of those intersections to make sure they were controlled, and that if a car needed to leave a nearby neighborhood, that was an escorted route and safe and getting folks out of the way. So all very valid. Suzanne, I will turn to you as your question. How do you address the needs of disabled and elderly who might be unable to walk or use a bicycle? We have a mile of roadway, and to get from one end to the other, there was a lot of modes of transportation happening that day. Bikes, scooters, rollerblades, skates, things like that. And so because we are on a roadway, it does pose a challenge. And one of the other things is that this event will move to different neighborhoods each year. This is now incorporated into our grant, our neighborhood grant process. And so neighborhoods are applying to bring this event to their area. So same event, new location. So it's almost it is a unique set of challenges as we move around. And so those are all things that we work with the Boise Bike Project. And we have an accessibility manager here at the city. And so having her eyes on these events is vital to say, have you considered where will they park? How do they get to this? And so we do the best that we can to make sure that we've got accessible bathrooms, accessible parking, and that we're calling those things out so people can prepare to attend the event and what makes them most comfortable.
As a person with a disability, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really important that if we're hosting an event, it is for everybody and that folks can get there. It looks like Diana had a comment here.
I can read Diana's for you. She chose elder, and so safety is a concern, but I'm definitely in favor of trying this. One issue here would be getting the city leaders to buy in. I belong to several nonprofits, and getting the entire community excited about anything is a challenge. People want to have events, but don't volunteer. I think we can all sympathize with that challenge right there. So getting people excitement, and but of course I think the fact that you're able to now move it to neighborhood might address some of that, because you have a neighborhood wanting this has a little bit of excitement already, or they wouldn't be applying to have it.
Yeah, and that's, as a city, it's great to collaborate with our neighborhood folks to say this neighborhood association wanted this and went through the application process to bring this event to this part of town. And that speaks volumes to folks when they're like, why did you choose this route? Why are you bringing it here? And it's because the people along that route and in that area specifically wanted it. And so it's great to have that neighborhood driven initiative. Jennifer brings up great perspective from a small business owner. Oh, go ahead, David.
I would say I think Suzanne is clarifying her concern.
Oh,
it was not so much about transportation accessibility being available, but rather will we, those who have some disabilities, feel excluded just by the nature of the event, I think is what she's experienced. Since it's on wheels or bicycles or something, would you feel excluded from the event?
Yeah, and we do our best. Like, that's what I was mentioning, the event footprint itself, and having our accessibility manager to be a part of those planning meetings to say, where will we have accessible parking for folks to access this event? How will they get from that parking into the roadway safely? And so identifying those routes, making sure that we have accessible bathrooms along the route as well, because you can tell that this volume of people, flooding the local businesses along the route may not be ideal for bathroom needs and whatnot. So those are the types of things that we highlight to make sure that everyone can get transportation to the route, and then once they're at the event, how will they move through the event safely and comfortably.
Sounds like you're taking those steps to provide as much accommodation as you can, which is really, kind of the extent of what you can do, really. I mean, like for my wife, for example, doesn't like to go with things with big crowds where people are shoulders to shoulders. Well, you can't help that. I mean, you've managed your crowd control as much as you can, but if she thinks it's going to be shoulder to shoulder, she's probably not showing up.
Right. And the nature of open streets is that the street is open. And so people do have to navigate. Even in this photo here on the screen, we have people on bikes and people walking. And so do we then divide, a bike lane versus a pedestrian lane? That kind of defeats the whole purpose of having an open street and having everyone come together and navigate this event together safely. Thanks, Suzanne, for pointing that out. Small business owner perspective from Jennifer. Lots of things to consider, making sure that the business knows that this event is happening, giving them the date and time so that they can staff accordingly, because they will have an influx in patrons that day. And then making sure that we're bringing those folks to the table early and often so that they know what the plan is for that day and those expectations are clear. And so these are all really great perspectives coming from a lot of different, diverse group. And so these are all things that we have to consider. And we do continue to learn as we host our second event later this month, and sharing out some of those lessons that we learned from last year.
Nicole, can I add on to something Jennifer mentioned in hers here, just real quickly, because she mentions this about business, and it reminds me of in Springfield, the Route 66 festival that is done downtown, and it draws hundreds of thousands, I think. And the businesses 2 years ago finally said, we've kind of had enough of this. There's all these people down here, but they're not doing business with us. And all these tents are blocking people's view of us, and this big stage, and it's in front of our businesses. And they really made their voices heard, went to the city, and the whole layout of the event was changed, and the stage was moved. And I don't remember some of the other things they did to try and help with the visibility of their businesses. So it wasn't just a street lined with tents, but there was visibility, and people were being encouraged, to visit the businesses, and the stage wasn't in front of a business, and so people could get in and out of it and things. So
yeah, those are all really important things to consider. For the 2024 event, stages were set up in empty parking lots. Our bike rodeo was in the school parking lot. And then making sure we did not have any vendors set up in front of businesses or stages set up in front of businesses, and that was actually part of the route and called out on our map to say, here's the coffee shop, here's the ice cream, here's the burger place, and making sure that those were forward facing as part of our route. So that's a great call out. Chet had his hand up.
Thanks, Nicole. I was curious from with the neighboring lens. The idea struck me. If you've ever been to a marathon or a half marathon, they have folks with a pole, and at the top of it, it might have like a 8-minute pace or a 9-minute pace, 9-mile pace, or a 10-mile pace. I'm wondering, for the nearby adjacent streets in that neighborhood, could there be a pole with a street name on top of it as a meeting place for the neighbors in that neighborhood to meet and connect with other of the residents that live closest by that may not have met each other. And my other thought was like whenever we have events that bring people together, and we're trying to build community and facilitate connections. I'm at the hospital right now, so I've got a little more detailed name tag, but name tags, David knows I'm a huge name tag proponent. You could maybe even encourage or offer folks to fill out a name tag. They could self-choose to put their name. They could put a street, or they could put a neighborhood, or just some ideas I thought that maybe you could incorporate to facilitate more connections between neighbors. Thanks for hearing me.
Yeah, I love that, like a neighborhood hub along the route where folks can connect, because with 8,000 people, we know that a majority of those folks came from other parts of the city to this event. And that a smaller portion of that were the folks who lived in the immediate area and walked or biked or came out their front door to the Open Streets event. So I really love that idea. David, you'll love that this year Open Street falls on Sunday, September 28th, which is
Oh,
Good Neighbor Day.
yeah, National Good Neighbor Day. And you should say that to Jennifer on here too. She's probably up out of her chair cheering now if
Yes,
she's heard
and
that.
so we will have an element, she's out of her chair. We will have an element, undertone theme of Good Neighbor Day and what that means. And I actually ordered 300 Good Neighbor journals to have at our booth at Open Streets.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Jennifer confirms she did.
So we will be implementing some type of neighborhood hub at our Energize Our Neighborhoods booth at the Open Streets event. But I love the name tag idea, and it didn't strike me until you said it, Chet. Like at an event this size, we can still scale down that connection to say, oh, you're from the West Bench neighborhood, or you're from the North End neighborhood, and get those folks connecting. So I'm thinking like color themed neighborhoods, so it's easy to identify. The purple name tag is the same neighborhood I live in. So that's great. Jennifer has name tag templates, so I'm set, ready to go. And then David, one thing about your business is that you called out, I think that's also the beauty of moving this event neighborhood to neighborhood, is that we're not going to be I would say, so highlighting those businesses and giving them this added headache of 8,000 people visiting their establishment, right?
Yes.
Over and over again, that it's one time. We rotate these through different parts of the city. We have 30 neighborhood associations that are active right now in the city of Boise. So it could be potentially 20 or 30 years before it returns to your neighborhood. Hopefully not. The goal is to have, more of these and more often, but it'll be a little while before we visit that same location from last year.
Excellent.
So some of the lessons that we learned was that these neighborhoods really wanted to bring this event. And so like I said, we incorporated that into our neighborhood grant process. More shade and seating options was a theme that we heard. There was a survey post-event that the Boise Bike Project shared out through their channels. And we're still learning. This year's event, we discovered that the route chosen may affect emergency response from our fire department the day of the event. So there was some challenges posed there in rerouting emergency response around the footprint of the event. So, looking for 2026 event, bringing in our fire department earlier in the process to ask what are the challenges, what are the best routes that they could recommend before we really get into the nitty-gritty planning. But it was a huge success in 2024. You can see here by the numbers and the expenses. So we budgeted $30,000 for last year as a neighborhood grant, and we've increased that for 25 and 26 events to $35,000. The Boise Bicycle Project does have other funding avenues with donors and whatnot. So, but it was a huge success. And it was well received. Like I said, we had 8,000 to 10,000 people show up for our very first event. I'm skited. I like to say scared and excited for the 2025 event in 10 days. Are we going to have the same number of people? Will the weather cooperate? What will the challenges the day of bring? Will people show up? And so we'll see. We'll see in 10 days. One of the other things we learned is how we got people to the event. So this is a photo of one of our bike buses that formed organically. I didn't know what a bike bus was until last year. But it's not just how people attended, it's how they arrived together, and thinking about, that session that you had a while back with the art of gathering. These folks gathered, and it was an experience in how they met up and then rode together. That became part of the event experience, was getting folks there. Our largest bike bus reported last year was about 250 bikes. So wild. But that was created a shared ritual and offered some connection before they even got to the event. Working with our public transit partners, maybe there's a discount or a free ride on the bus that day to get folks to the event. Coordinating with nearby schools, churches for parking options for those who plan to drive, encouraging carpooling, walking, etc., so that people can get to the event safely was another big lesson learned. More trivia for you. Boise has a gold status for a bicycle-friendly community, which is a huge step forward in building safer, more connected ways for folks to move about our city. And testing your knowledge, which 3 states do you think have the most bicycle-friendly communities, which is determined by the League of American Cyclists? So where is it the best and safest place, communities in the US that you would guess? Minnesota, California, Colorado. These are some of the guesses in our chat. San Francisco. So we're looking at states, not cities, but a lot of these that you're calling out are included. So here's our answers. California, I saw a few of those. Oh. Minnesota and Florida. I would say it depends on what part of Florida, right? Because it's not Orlando. Wow. So we're striving to be a bicycle-friendly state. Boise is getting there, but the rest of the state with our rural open spaces has not quite achieved that bike-friendly community. But we are working towards that with partners like the Boise Bike Project, who's a platinum bike-friendly business, and the Boise State University. They are a platinum bicycle-friendly university. So that's great to have them right in our downtown core. So as we wrap this up, like I said, Open Streets is not just about closing roads. It's about opening up the possibility, creating space for connection, belonging, and for community joy. Through this one single event, we can think about how we use our public space, how we support our local artists, businesses, and neighbors, and strengthen our neighborhoods together. We've seen in Boise, even though we love our cars so very much, that when you give people a space to move, gather, and celebrate, they show up. And we are really looking forward to this awesome day again this year. And we just announced our 2026 event, and that neighborhood is already looking forward to and so excited to begin planning a year, the event that isn't taking place for another year. So talk with your neighbors, pitch the idea to your city, start small like they did in Bogota, or go big, and let's keep building public spaces for people.
Well, back to one of the questions that I did see on here before we wrap up was, are there some grants available for this type of event? I know there's some national biking organizations and stuff like that. Are there any matching funds or grants?
I have not looked outside of Boise for funding opportunities because I am so privileged to have the support of our mayor and city council to reinvest funds into our community. So my Energize Our Neighborhoods program has a budget of $500,000 a year to reinvest into our communities for capital construction projects, or like this large scale Open Streets event. And so those neighborhoods go through an application process for that grant. And then working with partners like the Boise Bicycle Project, they're a nonprofit, but they have a pool of hundreds of volunteers, and that's what makes this possible. So I haven't had to look outside of the city for those funding opportunities. So unfortunately, I'm familiar with what else is out there. I love
Yeah,
that bike lights idea. We did have some community partners. The highway district was there and hosted a booth, and they're pretty well known for giving out those free bike lights.
I would bet some of the major biking organizations might have some matching monies or something to help at least get something started. But it'd be worth looking into there, Diana.
Thanks, Chet, for pointing that out. My email on this is City of Boise. There is a letter missing, so I'll make sure I fix that.
Or even some federal dollars, perhaps, since it's on transportation roadways. Well, you never know until you start looking, and you can start small and build up to something like that, something that needs the additional sponsorships. It's always a good approach. The idea friendly, have the idea, get some people to join with you, and begin with what you can manage, and maybe tackle this just on a street in your neighborhood or something to begin with.
Yeah,
Grow it from there.
absolutely. When we took this to our legal department, you know, like, hey, we want to host this event, first of its kind, and they said, you mean a block party? And I was like, no, we're not calling it a block party. It is definitely much more than a block party with those activations and the transportation focus. So
yes,
yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities depending on the city and the street chosen.
yes. Well, we always want to be a good steward of everybody's time that's on here. Nicole, thank you for coming prepared and bringing pictures, and even one of you with your own bike here at the end, the bike of luxury, it looks like there, all decorated up. So bringing the bling and bringing the information to awesome presentation, and just thought, you know, with you're right, we cover a car culture, and people plan events trying to accommodate cars, but there is certainly so much more interest in biking and trails and things, and this really kind of takes advantage of that and gets people together. It's a great example of what you're doing there, and especially how it can benefit different neighborhoods, and I think something that those that have watched live or those that are going to watch your recording can really benefit from. So thank you for being on and sharing with us, and I'll bring our recording to an end.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody, for your participation. It's been fun sharing.